Now we're going to go into the city, and as we go into the city, and you can see the skyline beginning to open up behind me here, we will walk along the waterfront for a few blocks, and then we will go into the city proper, just go a few blocks up, and land at the city hall. Now, Seattle was first permanently settled by Europeans in 1851. They landed at Alki Point, but it was buffeted by the wind, a horrible place to settle, and so 6 months later, they moved here to Seattle. In fact, where they came, the very first neighborhood that they established is called Pioneer Square, and it's only a few blocks south of here. So we'll be going through there in just a little bit. Now, within a 75-kilometer radius of where we are standing right now, there's approximately 4.6 million people living in the area, which makes it by far the largest metropolitan area in what we would call Cascadia. That is the land west of the Rocky Mountains, northwest of the Rocky Mountains, that drains out of the Columbia River, at least primarily. So this would be the states of Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and the province of British Columbia. Now, the major cities in this region, of course, Seattle the most important and biggest, but also you have Vancouver, second biggest, Portland, third biggest, and then Spokane and Boise are about the same size. Spokane historically was much bigger than Boise, but Boise has been one of the fastest growing mid-sized cities in the United States for a long time. And so now Boise is about the same size in the metropolitan area as Spokane and is going to be much bigger than it in probably only a few years. But Seattle, of course, is way bigger than any of those. Now, Washington State is a very wealthy state. The GDP per capita in nominal terms is approximately 98,000 euro a year. 98,000 euros. So that's a very wealthy, very industrious, productive state. Historically, Seattle was always one of the most important cities on the West Coast. The natural harbor here is one of the best on the West Coast, arguably the best, better even than the San Francisco Bay, and of course much better than the Portland's harbor, despite the name, and much better, of course, than the San Diego Bay. But it really was the gold rush in Alaska. I believe it was called the Klondike Gold Rush. Now we'll go into the city this way because we're on the waterfront and it's very crowded, so we don't want to run into anyone as I am monologuing here. So we'll try to get away from all the people. There's tens of thousands of people out and about still because there were so many spectators for the game. And of course, it's the middle of July, or at least the beginning of July, the middle of summer. The weather was fantastic, not a cloud in the sky, a great day to be out and about. Mid-20s. Seattle is one of the northernmost cities, or not one of, it is the northernmost major city in the United States. It is farther north than Toronto and is about the same latitude as Montreal. I do believe a little bit higher than even Montreal. And so even though the ocean moderates the temperature, so it never gets just brutally freezing cold here, there's not like a ton of snow, although there's a little bit, it never gets super hot here either. So in the middle of the summer, the average temperature is still only going to be in the mid-20s. And for a significant portion of the year, well, at least for the winter, it's only really a few degrees above freezing. But there will be consistent rain. All right, now we have to, the sidewalk is ended, so I guess we have to go back in. There's some really aggressive, all these people on the electric scooters they're like kamikazes. So if we were to walk down that bike lane, it would be a death wish. So we can't do that. We go back in. If we could get hit by a pedestrian, at least I'll survive. Now, anyway, So Seattle was always an important regional center. It's always been the biggest regional center in the Northwest. I mean, there might have been like, in the early 1800s, maybe going into the mid 1800s. Yeah, there were like random places that were bigger. But for, 120 years, 130 years, Seattle's been the biggest metro area in the Northwest. But in the past few decades, Seattle has exploded into what you see today. A major center of tourism, of technology, incredible wealth, massive buildings being built all over the place, some of the highest cost of living, not only in the United States, but in the entire world. In fact, I do believe there is not a single city or a single metropolitan area in the eastern 2/3 of the United States where purchasing a home costs as much as it does in Seattle. Purchasing a home in the New York metropolitan area, the DC metropolitan area, the Boston metropolitan area are all cheaper than in the Seattle metropolitan area. And that's because this place is unbelievably gorgeous. It's the most spectacular natural setting of any major city in the United States. We can say that objectively, it's just the truth. San Francisco probably a close second, but Seattle undeniably the best. But that means there's like no flat land. Any flat land in the Seattle metro area is artificial, right? We're walking on flat land right now. It's artificial. This was when Europeans first arrived. Everything was just these rugged hills going down into bays and lakes and rivers. And so Seattle is a very geographically artificial place. And it really is kind of a testament to the will of man that it even exists. Very annoying. Anyway, but in the 1990s, there was always like kind of a large Scandinavian population, very productive, very inventive, very educated, and you started to have people like Bill Gates, who created Microsoft, or created Microsoft with some other guy, and then you have and then you have Jeff Bezos, who comes here with Amazon. You have Alaska Airlines that predated them. You had Boeing that predated them as well. Expedia now is based here. Most of the world's major tech companies have hubs here, and so this place went from being one of the most European cities in the United States, where 95% of the population was European, to what it is today, which is much more of a melting pot. In fact, this is one of the most Asian metropolitan areas in the country. Racially, the area is about like 65-70% European, and then 30% remaining. And of that 30%, like 20% of that 30% is Asian. And so this is a very Asian area, which is quite unique for the United States. There are other places in the United States that are like that, like the Bay Area, San Diego, Los Angeles. But outside of the West Coast, the Asian population in most American metros is only 5, 6, 7%, if that. I mean, that's actually pretty high. And so this city has a very different feel than many other cities that you will encounter in the United States. In fact, when I went to the University of Washington, about half of the student body was European, and then about half was Asian. And then of the Asian half, about half were born in the United States, and the other half came from Asia proper, particularly from China and India. All right, now we'll be crossing into the city, and we won't have that much more to say beyond that. Living here, I spent some time here, of course, going to the University of Washington, so I know the city very well. I probably know it better than almost any other city in the world. And you know, because it is such a such a far north place, it is so. We have 17 seconds. It's a big boulevard. We're going to try to make it because we don't want to stand here. We're going to go fast, and hopefully these cars don't run us over. There used to be a giant highway, elevated highway here, Highway 99. They tore it down, but they still left this giant, like, 8-lane boulevard. It sucks. They should just pedestrianize the whole thing. All right, we made it across in one piece. Thank goodness. But anyway, spending some of the most important formative years of my life here, you know, doing my undergrad here. I know the city very well. I know the people very well, and you know, it's pretty fair to say. Of course, some might take offense at this, but it's pretty fair to say that this is probably the most introverted and depressive place in the United States. There's a concept called the Seattle Freeze, in that people here are going to be maybe polite, they're going to be somewhat orderly, but it's very hard to form meaningful relationships with people out here. People are very introverted, very stoic, and that comes from the Scandinavian influence, which is so strong, particularly in the formative years of Seattle's development, as well as the fact that it is just such a gray and dark place. It's the darkest place in the country. If you look at the amount of solar energy, the amount of sunshine, it is lower than any metropolitan area in the United States, lower than Boston, lower than Minneapolis.
Sorry. Thank you, guys.
Some of those, well, anyway. So, but because of the stunning geography and the incredible inventiveness of that original American population, they were able to overcome the darkness, the brutal geography, and build what is truly a world-class city. I've been all over the world. I know what world-class cities look like. In Seattle, it's a world-class city. Now, Seattle's a very left-wing place, and so perhaps more conservative or right-wing people in the United States and other parts of the world, they might take umbrage at me saying that it's objectively a world-class city, because there is a lot of homelessness and open drug use and some kind of problems with crime and disorder. But the simple reality is that this is a gorgeous city with a lot of money, and at least for now, things are still going very well. It's attracting people from all over the world. Now, we just passed through, behind me, Pioneer Square. Pioneer Square, this is really where the city started. And behind me, over this way, this is the original neighborhood of Seattle. This is where it all started, right here. These kind of, you know, 20, 30 square blocks, this is where it all started. And that neighborhood, Pioneer Square, is named for this little square right here. Now, we're almost at the end of the video. We're just going to walk a few blocks up to City Hall. That's where the kind of government is centered. Going this way. This neighborhood is kind of notorious for public drug use, homelessness, mental illness. A lot of people that are really suffering down on their luck will sleep here on the street, do drugs. But because the World Cup was here, they really cleaned it up. And so going around the city, yeah, I've seen probably thousands and thousands of people doing drugs publicly, but they have been moved out of this area a little bit. So we are kind of in luck, because traditionally going up this street this late at night, there would usually probably be like just a whole line of probably hundreds of people doing hard drugs. This is a big spot for it. So we are very fortunate that we can walk without issue right now. Now this building right here, that I believe is called the Smith Tower, this is actually the tallest building west of the Mississippi when it was built. That was like 1920, something like that. Kind of a fun little fact, a beautiful little building. But what's interesting is that all of the development of the city, because because the Pioneer Square neighborhood is has so much urban blight, all of the new development in the city was to the north of here. And so even though this was the tallest building on the West Coast when it was built, there's not really any super tall buildings to the south of it. All the tall buildings are to the north of it. Kind of interesting. And if you look at the Seattle skyline, it is spectacular. There are so many tall buildings. Keep going. Yeah, Seattle has one of the most spectacular skylines in North America. It really is a world-class skyline. Now, you can see how steep all of the streets are. It's an unbelievable angle that the streets are on. You can see what what they were dealing with in building. I mean, driving around here, it's crazy. It's like riding a roller coaster almost. Driving around the streets here, it's kind of a hard place to drive. It's in many ways, the geography does make it a hard place to live. It's very expensive. It's very hard to build here. It's very hard to get around. It's hard to. The traffic is some of the worst in North America. Some of the worst in the world. So I personally don't know if Seattle is going to be able to maintain the kind of level of wealth and intensity and development that it has right now. Starbucks has moved a lot of its corporate operations to Nashville. They speculate they might move their corporate headquarters there. Boeing has moved their headquarters to the DC suburbs. Amazon opened its second headquarters in the DC suburbs, and many speculate that they'll just make that the official headquarters. So, does Seattle have a super bright future? Well, of course it does. You can't have this many people, this much beauty, this much wealth, and for it not to remain for quite a while. But is it going to remain as important relative to the rest of the country as it is now? Almost certainly not. I think that for a lot of Americans, Seattle is somewhat developing into kind of a post-American city. Today's July 6th. July 4th was 2 days ago. I went to the fireworks. I was in the crowd in South Lake Union. And I would say the crowd was probably 20% people who look like me. And so it really does feel like kind of a very international, kind of post-American cosmopolitan place, almost like a Dubai or something like that. And so probably a lot of Americans, old stock Americans, probably be moving more, and you can see this in the data, they'll probably be moving more to places like Nashville and Raleigh and Orlando. But Seattle is probably always going to remain this, and increasingly become even more this kind of cosmopolitan hub. Now, we turn around here, while we're waiting for the light to turn green, you can see, what I'm talking about. So they pushed them up here a few blocks, but they're here. Now this is almost the end here. That's the city hall right there. We have this giant pit. It's been here for many years. Kind of embarrassing. Yeah. But I guess we're going to turn it into a high-rise eventually. Now next to the city hall is, I believe it's called the Columbia Tower. And that was also, I think, the tallest or second tallest building on the West Coast when it was open. It still is one of the tallest. Really is stunning. All right, we'll walk to the end of this block, and then that's where we'll end things. Because we're so far north, sunset at 9, twilight at 10, but we're really running out of light here. So hopefully I'm going to be able to edit this in post and turn up the brightness, crank it up, because I'm probably very dark right now. But c'est la vie. Yeah, there was so many fans, so many Team USA fans out at decked out in red, white, blue, tens of thousands of people. And that doesn't include the stadium, which has a seating capacity of, 55,000, something like that. And just a heartbreaking loss. This is the farthest that the United States has gone since, I do believe, 2002. Just a tragedy. I played football every year of my childhood growing up. I love it quite a bit. I know there's some kind of like Juddish right-wing people who they don't like football. They don't think it's manly or something, but it's a very beautiful game. I have very fond memories playing it, and I really love the World Cup. So I haven't been here in Seattle for a few years. This is the perfect opportunity to come back, and yeah, I mean, what can I say? I don't think that Seattle is a place that people like me would probably want to make a life in long term. But this is one of the best cities in the United States for tourism, and if you are kind of into that, into nature, into technology, into maybe kind of certain left-wing subcultures, this really is one of the best cities in the United States to spend a stint in your youth. It's kind of a hard place. People are standoffish. It's hard to get around. It's very expensive. So is it a good place to settle down? For most people, the answer is no. But for many young people, this is such a great place to visit, to spend a stint in. It really is a world-class place. And I have many fond memories from living here, from spending some of my formative years here. All right, well, from here in front of the beautiful Seattle City Hall, I probably came here, went in the neighboring buildings for a parking ticket one time. All right, until next time, ciao.